Public Facilities Ordinance. Ms. Kamen. Lucky you.
Lucky me. Give me 1 second. I'm going to pull up the presentation. Yeah, it's good.
Oh, there we go.
Okay.
This may be the most thankless job, this presentation. I'm sorry, no one is going to be happy with this.
Well, good evening. On that note, I think sometimes I'm always the bearer of bad news.
But we appreciate all the effort you put into it.
Thank you very much. Good evening. For the record, my name is Renee Kamen. I'm the school planning manager, and before you tonight is the open and constrained school chart for fiscal year 2018. The slides in here, you should have received the charts in your budget, in your pages, so you can follow along if you can't see on the screen. Okay. So you're going to get a full explanation of what the Adequate Public Facilities Ordinance is later this evening. We've invited Jeff Brono and Carl DiLorenzo to come in and give kind of the introduction and history. But for the moment, because we still have to move forward with the Adequate Public Facilities Chart, under the law, it's part of the county's residential growth management tool. It requires the Howard County Public School System to annually provide a chart of for the residential testing at the elementary school level, the elementary school region, and the middle school level. Essentially, if you're a developer, let's pretend I'm a developer and I want to subdivide my property for 150 homes, right? I have to pass a test. One of those tests is the schools test. And if I pass, that means the school that my property is in the attendance area at the elementary school level is under 150%, 15% capacity utilization. This is different than the board policy. I want to state that up front. If I happen to be in an area that is over 115% capacity utilization, I have to wait. But I wait up to 4 years before I can proceed to development. So 4 years consecutive testing at the school level, then I can proceed if I continue to fail. There we go. So how to read the chart? The green numbers are open schools. Those are schools that fall under the 115% capacity utilization. The constrained is the red, and they're marked with a C. So that means that school area, if it's elementary or middle school, is constrained. That means if I am a developer and I go forward with the development, I will not pass that test. And then you'll also see something called open CIP. And that is a category where capacity utilization is over 115%. And there's an approved capital budget with additional seats, and feasible redistricting can make the area open. So an example here is Running Brook Elementary School. Now this test is for 3 years out. This is not for tomorrow. So Swansfield Elementary School is having new seats being added, and we can feasibly redistrict the Columbia West area to allow for those seats to be open. So therefore it's open with a capital improvement project. And in the elementary school chart, there can be a constrained region. So for example, Manor Woods, even though it says open CIP, the region is closed, and therefore new development being tested starting July 1 for 2020, you would not be able to proceed with your development. So here are the new charts. I had to break down the elementary school chart. So up here on the screen, you'll see the Columbia East. There are 6 elementary schools that are constrained and 1 elementary school region, and that would be the northern region. And here's,
could you name the schools?
oh,
please?
sure. I'm going to have to read it off the slide. So it would be in Columbia East, that would be Talbot Springs. and Centennial Lane, Hollyfield Station, St. John's Lane, Gorman Crossing, and Fulton Elementary School for the 2020 testing year. And the region would be the northern region. And this is the middle schools. Again, we have 6 middle schools that are constrained, and none of them listed, none of the schools are open with CIP improvements. So the closed schools would be Harper's Choice Middle School, Ellicott Mills Middle School, Thomas Viaduct Middle School, Burley Manor Middle School, Dunlagan Middle School, and Murray Hill Middle School. So tonight I'm before you to request action from the board to take this open and closed school chart, or open and constrained, I have to get used to those terms, open and constrained, to forward it to the county government so that it can be incorporated into the pre-filed legislation that will go along with the housing allocations May 25th. And I'll take
Ms.
any
French.
questions if you have any.
Thank you. Ms. French?
The chart that we have in paper, is that different from the chart
No.
up there?
It's just not in color.
It's just, I don't know how it was printed, but it might be absent of color.
It's okay. Ms. Hanks, can you get us one in color?
We need color. We need these in color because
Well,
that helps us.
Anyway, my question
Sure.
has to do with, I'm concerned because the chart that is included in tonight's presentation, the overview and history, shows the May 2016 AFO test chart for elementary schools. And it shows Guilford closed every single year from 2018 all the way to 2028. I should have brought my magnifying glass. And yet, when I tried, and I know that, so there's a year difference, but the numbers, the student enrollment numbers and the percentages, for example, if I go up to 2021 to 2022, they don't correspond. And on the chart you have presented tonight, Guilford is open all the way until, 2024. So I am getting very confused about because I'm assuming this is the official chart of Jeff Brownow's, because this is going to be his presentation?
Okay, so the presentation one, that's an example.
16.
Yeah, that's an example for particular his presentation and what's going to go forward. So the AFO chart is adopted every year. Our projections are updated every year. So there can be some instances where schools are shown as closed and now are opened because the anticipated population projection is actually lower than what we would have tested for in the year before. So the numbers in what I'm presenting tonight are actually different than Mr. Brownow's because that was a previous rendition of an AFO chart. I don't know when that was provided.
I remember when Senator Gazzoni was in county council and a number of other elected officials, they would hold us accountable. You presented this for last year, and now this year it's totally different. What caused the variance? What is your
different things can cause the
model?
variance. So our projection runs off of multiple different data points: birth data, housing allocation units, move-ins, move-out resales, apartment turnover. And sometimes what happens in our projection is we might anticipate a certain number of new housing unit allocations coming online. Well, then they don't get built and they get pushed out a year, and that affects our projection model. So in one year, we might be anticipating 1,000 units, but only 100 get built for whatever reason. And we feed our new housing information, housing unit allocations, they come directly from the Department of Planning and Zoning. So they are, it's a going back and forth between two offices. So sometimes what happens is when new development is supposed to come online, it just doesn't come online and the allocations get pushed back a year. we can ask Jeff later why that happens. I'm still learning in this position, but I know that those different factors, they can constantly push in. Other factors too, because we use historical data in certain elementaries at all levels. And if, for example, we are seeing a higher number of students being yielded out of a new development, that also affects. So our yield rates also gradually increase year by year for new developments. So there are multiple things that come in and out of our projections that we update every year, we study every year, and this is the resulting table and data from that 2016 projection.
I hear you.
I know.
I'm just concerned that this is one of the tools used by construction folks to determine the priority order for additions, new seats, renovations, whatever. And Guilford's our second oldest school, elementary school. So I just worry about them that school not getting the attention it needs. So what concerned me was the closed all the way through in last year's report, which I don't remember it all being closed
No.
last year.
I don't have my chart from last year,
Yeah.
but I want to say that for the chart tonight, Guilford
not.
is showing that it's opened all the way through until 2024. And this is a one-year test, so we'll come back next year and it will advance into 2021. And so the effects that will come out of the 2017 feasibility study and everything that will happen this summer will be put into the Apfo chart that will be adopted next year.
Yes, but we're already planning, for example, that Talbot Springs needs a renovation, and that's pushed out to 2022, correct?
I thought we were gonna rebuild it.
Well, rebuild, whichever we want to do, the project completion has been pushed out to 2022. So this chart becomes a valuable tool if we're already out looking at 22 and later.
2021,
For what,
Talbot Springs.
Yeah. That's all. I'm not sure how the public fought for this so hard back in '92, and then to get middle schools added. And it didn't really slow growth, it just predicted it. But I'm just concerned about how we are using it in our plans.
So this chart only represents, this is for new growth. So a new developer putting in new housing units. Growth and resale also happens. So even though we have new growth, and this chart is to represent new growth, that still means that we have a growing number of existing homes, and those homes produce children as well.
More than half, as
Yeah, more than half.
data shows.
More than half.
More than half.
That you'll see later tonight in the subsequent presentation. So there is that balancing effect.
Okay, you all set?
Questions?
Ms. Coombs?
I just want to put this out there in case the public is wondering. High schools are not included because it's county regulation.
Correct.
So just, we're not the one that is restricting that. It is the county.
Yes, that is correct. That's part of the current APFO law and regulations.
Mrs. Delmont Small? Dr. Allworker?
I'm going to admit my confusion.
Microphone.
I'm going to admit my confusion in hopes that I'm representing many citizens who are also confused, not in what you've done, not the work that you've done, but in this, what seems to be a chicken and egg problem about whether we're always chasing the developers and building new schools and expanding new schools, or whether developers are following us. Like, who's following who here? I admit that I find it very confusing. So if a school is closed, the developers are not supposed to move forward
They
in
can't move
their
forward.
development.
They cannot move forward. They,
For 3 years.
for at least 4
Yes.
years. So that means the school system would have at least 4 years to rectify the situation. So that would be whatever tools that are at our disposal.
And that's on us to rectify that situation.
Yes.
Well,
And that's what I'm getting at.
Yeah.
So ultimately, we are the ones that bear the brunt of new development that is allowed to, or is at least under consideration, so that we can accommodate it within a certain period of time. This is what concerns me. Instead of, trying to rein in the development so that we're not constantly having to expand and build new schools, the opposite is occurring, where the development ultimately, I think, takes priority over the limitations that we have as a school system. I don't know, I don't know if you can help me with this, or we should wait until the presentation later today.
I was gonna say, so,
Maybe
I
we
was
should
gonna
wait.
suggest writing that question down and bringing it back when Jeff
Yes,
and Carl are here,
okay.
because
I will do
Jeff
that.
actually has been here for a very long time.
he can
He,
help me.
was one of the, staff members to the APFO committee, so his presentation tonight will include that question that you have.
Okay,
We anticipate fully on coming, there's 2 parts to that presentation. The first one is just kind of getting everyone's feet wet as to what APFO is, why it is, how it got to the way it is. And then the second part actually deals with the future legislation that is being proposed by county staff, by the county executive, that will be coming forward this summer. So I think that question would be best handled in the history and the introduction.
okay. Thank you, Ms. Kamen.
You're welcome.
Ms. Delmont Small.
Okay. I'm going to respectfully say, I think the problem is the system is broken. There are a lot of moving parts, and we're not as a school system, it's not working. I mean, if anybody looks at this and says, this is the way we should be figuring out how to solve a chicken and the egg in Howard County, this is not the way you would be doing it. And I have to say that we keep kicking the can down the road. I mean, we're smart people in this county. We really have to have, in my opinion, not only discussions internally, but have discussions, thoughtful, possibly difficult discussions with the other elected officials and with our brethren across in the county. And until we do that, I really don't think this is going to work. And I have to say that I personally would not be comfortable voting on this until I have more of my questions answered. So my question to you is, when does this need to be approved by? Because I'm assuming is there county?
Today.
Well, that's not.
Because the pre-filing legislation will occur on May 25th. So the board doesn't have a meeting in between now and then.
Well, then let me ask a technical question. What happens if we don't approve it, other than the county council wants to shoot us? I mean, honestly, what happens to us?
That's a very good question.
Would it just revert to what is currently on file?
I believe
Which would be a
so,
problem.
but I would like to defer that question to Jeff when he comes in. Because I'm not so sure on any board ever not passing the chart.
But we ask this every year, and I think we do know the answer,
I think,
Which is what?
which is that it will just use last year's.
Right, which is not a good
Yes.
solution.
And
No.
it's not good because it
Yeah.
won't then protect the schools
It
that
would be even
need it.
worse
Right.
than this
Yeah.
one.
Right.
Next year.
Exactly.
So basically, what we'd be approving now is not the process, which
No.
we can enter
Process will
into
come later.
conversations
Just the
with the county
numbers.
about. but the accuracy of these numbers. And I'm not questioning, even though I agree with you totally. I'm have no reason to question the accuracy of these numbers. So I feel comfortable about voting in favor of the chart, but with the understanding that we have to continue to have a discussion in this county about this entire process.
So that's actually the purpose of the second part,
Right.
because the pending legislation is there. And
Yes.
so what we're trying to do is bring that forward to the board and the
Right.
superintendent and have that active conversation so that the Board of Education can have, formulate its own opinion based on the information that has been vetted through the APFO committee.
Yeah, and I appreciate that this presentation is going to be, is scheduled for later today.
The only thing that I would suggest, I'm having a little challenge in terms of how my brain operates, in terms of I would like to see the history and the conversation, the broader context, since that's occurring tonight, and then defer your vote till after that, so that you
Oh,
can get
okay.
those questions answered.
Yeah,
So just rearrange your agenda for this evening, because it's part of the administrative agenda to continue, so that have all the players at the table can answer
Yeah.
those questions, and
Yeah,
they can go
that
right
would
into
be
the
great.
action.
Yeah, absolutely. Okay,
Great. Yeah, from my view, this is an exercise we go through, and then it's information that nobody ever does anything with, productively at the county
well,
level.
it goes into the law and it goes into the
No, I know,
legislation,
no,
so
I
it gets
understand.
tested every year.
No, that part,
Books.
but the, whether they're open or closed or development or whatever, we have absolutely no control over that. And it doesn't appear that the county exercises any, well, I won't bash anybody on that one. We just don't go anywhere with it. My personal opinion. Okay.
So we'll bring this back later?
Oh, yeah, okay.
Thank you so much.
You're welcome.
And, it's not like we're gonna have a whole lot of choice. Vote on something. All right, now we have program.